I've been writing a screenplay for the Martin Luther King story with the cooperation of the estate. I can't say for sure it's going to happen. I really hope so. Jamie Foxx is very interested, and I worked with Jamie before, and I think he can do a hell of a job as King. I want to tell a story about a man who was a great American. I think, right? He was our Gandhi. He was as close as I know to American Gandhi, and believed in nonviolence, but a strong nonviolence, resistant. He spoke out not only for civil rights, but when he crossed over and he spoke out against militarism and greed and the Vietnam War, he made many more enemies. And he became a very strong and important character because he was merging this huge civil rights movement with the anti-Vietnam movement. He pointed out very clearly that colored soldiers were fighting in disproportionate numbers in Vietnam and killing colored people over there, whereas they could not get decent treatment or education at home. He made that famous quote, remember, about spending $320,000 to kill every single Vietnam soldier. That's what it cost us, and we were spending $50 at home for anybody who was poor. And he was saying, this is crazy, and a nation that has these priorities is doomed to a spiritual death.
So you had King dealing with Kennedy 50 years ago in the 1963 March on Washington, and then moving on to deal with LBJ to get the Voting Rights and the Civil Rights Act passed.
Right. Yeah, a lot, and I think we have to give not much credit is always given to Kennedy, but his death did motivate a lot of that feeling that we had to pass that the Civil Rights Act and then the Voting Rights Act. But King fought for it, and Johnson, that was his best side. Johnson did, we have to give him credit for backing him on that.
Sadly, it was U.S. Attorney General Robert Kennedy who ultimately approved a wiretap on Dr. King. Maybe we can take that from that moment decades ago to what we're seeing today, not just on leading dissident figures, but on all Americans, and it looks like on most world leaders, enemy or ally.
Well, you have to say pre-Robert Kennedy, J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI had been very interested in civil rights leaders going back to the 1930s. He'd bugged them, and he always thought that the civil rights movement was controlled by Moscow, and he thought the Vietnam students who were protesting against the war were controlled by Moscow. He had informants in all these groups. Hoover represents this. By the way, Hoover goes back to 1919, Woodrow Wilson era, and he was involved in the Palmer raids. He believed that we deported many leftists in 1919,
including Emma Goldman and
including
others.
Emma Goldman and Big Bill Haywood. It was, we've always had a fear of communism that was disproportionate to what their real threat to us was. And before the revolution, by the way, the property classes always feared labor.